Hello, hello, everybody. Oh, new book. We are starting a new book today. Exodus. We completed Genesis. I'm honestly surprised it didn't take longer for us to get through Genesis. There's like 50 chapters in it. But anyways, new book. We're in Exodus. We're going to be covering chapters 1 and 2 today. Hope everyone's doing well. Glad to see some of you were able to get out and get some writing in yesterday. Weather held out real nice. Got together. This is on, right? Yeah, that would have sucked. Got to ride with some of you last night, which was nice. We got to go for a little short ride. Found myself at the wrong QT because, you've lived that short bus life for so long, you make these type of mistakes. Anyways, after finally getting to the right QT, we went on a nice little ride, hung out a place called the Dog Father. I've personally never been there before. The food looked good, but in my opinion, what they were charging for what they were giving you was not worth it, in my opinion. So I didn't personally try anything. Yeah, I mean, I hear great things, and I heard great things about it, when we were there, but I'm not sure I want to pay those prices for a hot dog. So yeah, try it if you like. All the guys there said it was great, so go ahead and try it if you want. So yeah, that was a pretty nice night, and look forward to this coming Tuesday when we have the official Tuesday on Twos. Again, I'm sure it's at Family Power Sports, so make some room. Get off early if you can. I'm just kidding. Don't. Just do your normal job, okay? If you make it, you make it. We see you. It's great. If you're not, it's okay. There's always another one. All right, but that's enough of that. Exodus chapter 1. We're going to go ahead and pray, and we're going to get right into this. Hello, Father. Lord, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this day that has brought us into continuing our journey into the book of Exodus. To start this journey, to really get into some of the more well-known stories and to examine them and dive deeper into them, Lord. There is so much wisdom, so much to know, so much to be taken from these stories. Help us to see this, Lord. Help us to hear it. Give us the eyes to see, the ears to hear, to receive your word, and for it to strengthen us, Lord. Strengthen us in our walk. Help us grow, getting to know you, and embolden us for when we speak about you to others. Let everything that is spoken and said, Lord, be of you, and only of you. Help me, Father, to deny myself, and only speak for you. In Jesus' name, I pray. Amen. All right, so we're going to go we're going to cover 2 chapters today. And what we're going to notice here in these first 2 chapters, the time frames. We're going to be jumping through time pretty quick. We're going to be looking at one little instance, and then before you know it, we're jumping forward in time to another event, jumping forward in time to another event. The author, to whom is Moses, that wrote the book of Exodus, as he was writing this, per the Lord's instructions, needed to get to the point of Exodus. So that is why we're going to at first see a bit of a change in how things are written in these first 2 chapters, as opposed to the first 2 chapters of Genesis, where there was like a lot of information, a lot of details, a lot of extras provided. In the first 2 chapters of Genesis, we're not going to experience that here in the first 2 chapters of Genesis. Things are going to pick up, and they're going to pick up rather quickly. And I want to throw that out there before we get started, because far too often, and I'm guilty of this myself, when we read the Bible, we get subconsciously stuck in our Western linear way of thinking and reading stories that, okay, so new chapter, so this is like the next day. The very next day, this is when this happened, and then the next hour, this is when this happened. That's not what's happening here in the book of Exodus, in really the Bible in general. That's not the way it's written. Hebrew writers don't write anything like we do here in the West. The writing styles are completely different. So again, I wanted to make that well known, and I'm going to point out the subtle hints that time has elapsed, significant time frames have elapsed to give you a better understanding of the momentum that's being built up as we progress. So let's go ahead and we're going to break them down by the verses from the get-go. Starting with chapter 1, we're going to cover verses 1 through 10. So read along with me if you have your Bibles open. These are the names of the sons of Israel who went to Egypt with Jacob, each with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The descendants of Jacob numbered 70 in all. Joseph was already in Egypt. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. They multiplied greatly, increased in numbers, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. Then a new king, to whom Joseph meant nothing, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. So let's pause right there. So again, these first two chapters, the events are going to go fast. Just in these first 10 verses, we can already see this. All right, so the whole point of the books of Exodus is to talk about the deliverance of Israel and the things that happen after. That is the reason why Moses is being dictated by God to move things along real quick here in the first two chapters. So we started out with the 12 tribes. We're very familiar with these names. We're very familiar with all these men. And we're also told that they increased greatly in number. So this alone here gives us an idea of just how much time has actually passed. They've grown in number. They went from 70 to an even bigger number. Another sign that a significant time has passed is when it's mentioned that a new king has come to power. If you recall, in Egypt, the king / Pharaoh was seen as a god. Okay, so they didn't have an election like we do here. Leaders weren't appointed for a designated period of time. No, this was a lifetime position that they held. So that alone tells us even more time, gives us an idea of even more time that has passed. Along with the fact that it mentions that that entire generation that started in Egypt has passed away. Now, while people are not living as old as they did in the earlier parts of Genesis, we're still living up to 100 plus years old right now. All right. So Jacob himself was, I believe, 147, if I remember correctly. All right. Not good with numbers, so double check me on that. So he was 147 years old. So people aren't just living up into their 80s, 90s, and then dying off. No, they're going well beyond that. So this, again, is all to give us an understanding as to just how much time is actually flying through as we read just these first 10 verses. I lost my spot in my notes. Yes. So yeah, another king. And it also mentions that this particular king, my NIV says that Joseph meant nothing to him. It's not the best translation here. Um, I prefer the ESV translation when it mentions that Joseph, that he knew not of Joseph. He didn't know who he was. Or I'm sorry, King James. Joseph, he knew not. So he never even heard of Joseph. This is how much time has gone past. He didn't know Joseph. He didn't know he didn't know about, even in his immediate history of things that have come, as to why these people of Israel are even in the land of Egypt in the first place. Which is easy to see, because just in our own lifetime, if something or someone of any significance goes on unmentioned, we tend to forget about them. And if you haven't noticed in your lifetime, regardless of what your age is, if you haven't noticed that in your lifetime, we tend to forget things pretty darn easily, especially when we're talking about the love and grace of the Lord. He has graced all of you and myself in so many ways, and then we reach those hard points in our lives, and we're just like, man, he's just done forgotten me. You're going to help me out here, big guy, or what? You know, we have ourselves sitting here and thinking that. But a good example of this, because it's a lot of information just in the past, 10 years or so, has been released. An example of this is going to be JFK, John F. Kennedy, who was one of our presidents for the longest time. After his death, give or take 5-10 years after that, nothing. Never heard of the guy. Briefly glazed over in history books, in our schooling. Beyond that, though, nothing. The significant things that this man did, the war that he avoided with the blockade for Cuba, all of that is just gone. No idea who this guy is. And even more so, the mysteries covering his death. For the longest, we didn't have those answers. But again, in the most recent 10 years that have passed, more and more details have been declassified and released into the public as to what happened. Now, this is not because somebody decided, or at least, correction, let me wind this back. My opinion is, which remember, counts for nothing, it's worthless. My opinion is that these details were intentionally released within the last 10 years because we don't care. This happened way back in the 70s, right? 60s. Yeah, 60s. Sorry. I know my history. You need to know your history. Because to us today, John F. Kennedy, who's that? I don't care. Okay, great. He got shot by some random, whatever. Okay. We don't care today. But the people who did care, most of them are dead now. That's not coincidence here. All right. But this is just another example to show you that when significant events in our history is overlooked, not only are we going to forget it, we're going to repeat it. And we have a tremendously amazing record at repeating the faults of our history. Holy cow, are we really good at that? And it's not because we try. It's actually because we're trying not to, but we end up doing it anyways. I don't know if I've ever mentioned the reason why we are referred to as sheep in the Bible. It's because we're dumb. Sheep are dumb. We are dumb. The Lord knows we're dumb, and he loves us and gives us grace anyways. So this is amazing. All right, so moving on from that. But as we see, it's selfishness and fear that led the Pharaoh, this new Pharaoh, to believe that he needs to declare the people of Israel as an enemy of the state. regardless of the amazing things that Joseph did for them in their past, getting them through the famine, being the right hand to Pharaoh, and all of the good calls and all the great prosperity that he brought to the land of Egypt, boop, gone. Joseph, never even heard of him. Don't know who you're talking about. So this goes to show us just how important it is for us to remember these very important details. 11 through 14, verses 11 through 14. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Fitman and Ramses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. They made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar and with all kinds of work in the fields. In their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. So as we see the efforts, the initial, because they're not done yet, the initial efforts of the king, of the Pharaoh of Egypt, is working against them. The opposite of what they wanted is happening. The harder they press the Israelites, the greater in number that they grow. This is actually something that we've seen in history repeated quite often. Take, for example, in our own history, well, again, go figure, because I mentioned JFK. In our own history, in the Revolutionary War, we remember things like taxation being forced upon the colonists and other very harsh tasks and duties and unfair things that were placed on the colonists. The British government at the time thought, well, you know what, we're going to do this. They're going to submit and remain under our thumb or boot. But that's not what happened. You increase taxes and start pulling all this retarded political stuff on us. Yeah, you're only strengthening our desire to be like, yeah, no, not dealing with this. So this is just one of many examples throughout history when a stronger force that tries to belittle, shrink, and demoralize what appears to be a weaker, smaller group backfires. We've seen it time and time and time and again. And it's amazing that even today, especially with speaking on a military background, it's amazing that even today military leaders have not picked up on the fact that they haven't learned this lesson. It's like, really? This is what you want to try to do? History has proven that this doesn't work. All right. Whatever. So this is just one of many, many examples. Continuing on, 15 through 22. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Sephra and Puah, when you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. But if it is a girl, let her live. The midwives, however, feared God and did not do what the king of Egypt had told them to do. They let the boys live. Then the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, why have you done this? Why have you let the boys live? What did I say I was doing? To 22. Why have you let the boys live? The midwives answered Pharaoh, Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They are vigorous and give birth before the midwives arrive. So God was kind to the midwives, and the people increased and became even more numerous. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people. Every Hebrew boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. So we see he's stepping things up. The next strategy is to get the midwives to kill all newborn boys. An attempt to, put a stranglehold on the people of Israel. He needs them to stop growing. He needs them to stop growing in number and in size. He has a great fear for this, fear of this happening, which, as far as what we know, is unwarranted in the first place. So we see he gives the midwives this task, and they ultimately just not going to do that. They defied and also lied to the king on how they were unable to kill the newborn boys. Now the midwives lying here has had many people wondering and really questioning whether lying is a sin or not. This story for many people has them questioning their theology, and I have seen, hilariously, I might add, I've laughed quite a bit at a lot of so-called pastors today and other teachers use stories like this to convey a positive message of lying, to say that it's okay to lie, given certain circumstances. And that is not at all true. No, lying is a sin. It is a sin through and through. But this story, this section of the story, does tend to get people thinking. We see it's not a sin because we see that not only did they get away with it, but God also blessed the midwives with families of their own. What we need to understand, lying, 99% of the time, when we lie, it is for selfish reasons. Majority of that 99%, we don't even realize that it's a selfish thing. Okay? Let's take the classic, honey, does this outfit make me look fat? There's a classic one that we can all have some form of relation to. Guys, what are you supposed to do? No, babe, you look great. Yeah, I mean, if I was single and I saw you on the other side of the street, I'd be like, gotta get me some of that. Yeah, that's a lie. And it was for selfish reasons. It was selfish because the guy doesn't want to endure the backlash that would come from speaking the truth. That is what makes it selfish. No, I lied to spare her feelings. No. You're lying because you don't want to get your butt chewed and possibly even beat. That's why you're lying. It's not to spare feelings. We have done a wonderful job fooling ourselves into thinking, no, I lied for them. I lied to save them. I lied not to hurt them. No, you lied to protect yourself. That's what that is. And that is the stark difference here. The midwives had nothing to gain from lying. If anything, they had everything to lose. They chose to obey and fear God. Now, the word fear here that is used is not like this trembling type of fear. The word fear here that is used is to give reverence. They revered the Lord greater and higher, as we all should, than that of the king, than that of their own government. Excuse me. And that is what makes the difference. This lie was not selfish. It was out of service and reverence to God. They had nothing to gain and everything to lose. This is what separates it. So please leave this ridiculous idea that, you're lying to help others, to save their feelings and all this stuff. That's not why you're doing it. You're lying to protect yourself. You're lying because you have something to gain, or you have something motivating you to stay away from. Like, as a husband, getting your butt beat, that's a motivation right there. Not for me, though. My love language is violence, and so I intentionally poke at my wife every single chance I get. And then after so many pokes, then she starts whack. And it's like, that's amore. But that's me. Don't copy me. All right, moving on. So here we are. Pharaoh's like, all right, fine. I'm going to give an order to the entire nation of Egypt. He says to all the people. He didn't say to his leaders, his priests, his elders, none of that. He said, he made this declaration to all of his people that if they find a baby boy, a Hebrew baby boy, to cast them into the Nile. So this is the next step in bumping things up to get what he wants. Again, unwarranted fear is driving all of this. It's selfishness, unwarranted fear. Yeah. Chapter 2. Let's look at verses, again, 1 through 10, chapter 2. Now a man of the tribe of Levi married a Levite woman. And she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was a fine child, she held him for 3 months. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. His sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. Then Pharaoh's daughter went down to the Nile to bathe, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her female slave to get it. She opened it and saw the baby. He was crying, and she felt sorry for him. "This is one of the Hebrew babies," she said. Then his sister asked Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and get one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" "Yes, go," she answered. So the girl went and got the baby's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this baby and nurse him for me, and I will pay you." So the woman took the baby and nursed him. When the child grew older, she took him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "I drew him out of the water." Moses essentially means to be drawn out or to draw out. This is going to be a common theme if you haven't already picked up on it, as to why people are given their certain names. If you remember Esau, Jacob's brother, was named Esau because he came out red and hairy. Esau essentially means hairy and or red. So it wasn't some clever thing, it wasn't just some picking names out of a baby book type deal. No, there was something connected to why they named them what they named them. So these details that's offered about Moses' birth, these are not filler words. I'm referring to the mentioning of both the mother and the father being members of the tribe of Levi. This wasn't extras. This wasn't just something to throw in there for the sake of, making a sentence longer. This is the tribe of Levi. This is the tribe that will be assigned the priestly duties once the tabernacle is established and the law has been given. That is what their role is going to be. They are going to be the priests. And from there, they are going to be the ones conducting all the ceremonies, the Levitical ceremonies, the sacrifices, the chief priest going in one day out of the year to make atonement for the people, so on and so forth. So it is important to understand that Moses, aka the lawgiver, which is one of his names, came from the Levites. So it's not meaningless. It's important to know about the lineage. Now I want y'all to take note about what it says after they place the basket in the bank of the Nile. Of all the directions that the river could have been flowing on that day, okay, of all the directions, it flowed directly into the path where Pharaoh's daughter was going to be bathing. And by the way, bathing wasn't an everyday thing like we do today. That's not what bathing was. Bathing was like, I didn't look it up, so I can't say for sure. But royalty, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say once a week. Let's say once a week. All right. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I don't know. I didn't look that up. So again, I very well could be wrong on that. But let's say it was once a week. So not only did that basket flow in the direction on the exact same day that the Pharaoh's daughter was going to bathe, it happened at the exact same time. She could have chosen at any point in time of the day to go bathe. But she went at that time. This here, my brothers and sisters, the reason why I point this out is to show you the hand of God at work. That's what this is. It's not coincidence. Y'all know what I think about that world. Worldly people use the word coincidence. They like that word. It helps to justify the things that they can't explain, or in this case, the hand of God that they don't want to accept. But this is what's happening. This is the hand of God working. And he works in our lives the very same way. Very subtle, but very deliberate. And we don't even know it's there. We don't even know it. With the gift of hindsight, i.e. the Word of God, we know that's what was happening. But as we're living our lives on a day-to-day basis, we don't really have that luxury of hindsight, unless, of course, we reflect on it afterwards. It's like, oh man, you know what? That was God moving in our lives. And sometimes when this happens, I always think to myself, man, I wish I could actually catch him in the act, so to speak. Like realize it in the moment. Instead of, going through man, what's going on here? And why is this so? I'd like to just be like, oh, you know what? No, this is God's hand. I've yet to achieve that. If any one of you have achieved that, y'all let me know. I think it'd be pretty cool to actually spot it in the moment. But anyways, yes, God is working in our lives. And even though we don't see it, that doesn't mean that it's not happening. So, as we also read, Moses got returned to his mother. In addition, he was guaranteed safety. This is Pharaoh's daughter. If daddy doesn't object, then her word is basically law. And to add on to that, his mother is also going to get paid. Wouldn't that be something today, right? For you to get paid to nurse your own child. So, again, that's the hand of God. That is not coincidence. And by the way, the women of this time, they nursed children until they were 3 years old. This wasn't until 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year. What did we do? We did about 9 months, a year. A year. The longest we did was a year. No, 3 years. 3 years worth of wages just to feed your own kid. That's pretty awesome. Verses 11 through 15. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Looking this way and that, and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw 2 Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "What I did must have come known." When Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. So during this time and these events, Moses is roughly 40 years old. Note in the text, in the scriptures, it says he's grown up. Now, again, in our Western minds, when we hear about stories of a person who was a baby and then we mention stories about them being grown up, we automatically skip to around 18 years old. They're grown up. They're a man now. They're a woman now. They're out on their own. This is commonly what we think of. But no, in this context, with the Hebrew word here, isn't strictly grown up. It means grown up and matured. Guys, you're not matured yet. All right. By the biblical standard, I'm 2 years away from being mature. No, I'm not saying the number out loud. Figure out the math. Do it yourself. But, all right, this is what it means. That he was not just grown, but matured. So, again, one of that Western mindset that makes it difficult for us to comprehend and understand what is going on. Let's see, what else? So then we read, and he kills an Egyptian taskmaster for beating a Hebrew slave. And then he learns that what he thought was a discreet kill. It wasn't. It wasn't as discreet as he thought. And once word got around, the king found out, and he ultimately ended up fleeing. Now, if y'all ever seen the old movie, The 10 Commandments, it's a pretty hilarious movie because it's highly incorrect. But if you would like a humorous rendition on what this didn't look like, but again, a humorous rendition, I encourage you to watch that movie. It's quite, yeah, it's funny. Moses. Yes, it's a classic, baby. Moses. Oh, God. Anyway, I digress. 16 through 22. Now, a priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came to draw water and fill their troughs to water their flocks. Some shepherds came along and drove them away. But Moses got up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. When the girls returned to Reuel, their father, he asked them, "Why have you returned so early today?" They answered, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew water for us and watered the flock." "And where is he?" Reuel asked his daughters. "Why did you leave him? Invite him to have something to eat." Moses agreed to stay with the man, who gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. Zipporah gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom, saying, I have become a foreigner in a foreign land. So a few things just to take away from here. One of the bigger things that really got me mixed up when I was in my initial journey going through the Word of God. Here in the NIV, it mentions the man's name Raul or Rial. I don't know how to pronounce it. For people who do know this story, this might sound a little odd. You might be wondering, wait, I thought Moses' father-in-law's name was Jethro. You are correct. However, Jethro's name was also Ruel. It's weird, I know. But biblical names often reflect a person's essence. Just like I mentioned with Esau. He was red and hairy. That's what his name means. But they can reflect a person's essence. They can reflect a title. We know he was a priest. Or some sort of status that they held, and not just a single identity of who they were. So Raul, go figure, the Mexican said Raul. Reuel is Jethro. Jethro is Reuel. We're going to see him again once the people of Israel are freed and they've left Egypt. We're going to see him show up again. And I just want to make that known to y'all about the names. It's important to understand. Again, our Western minds can easily make this very confusing for us. Names were not like what we have today, especially with a first, middle, and last name. That wasn't a thing. All right. Even in the New Testament, people are not known because of a first, middle, and last name. Jesus of what? Jesus of Nazareth. Not Jesus of Bethsaida or Jericho. No, he was Jesus of Nazareth. So that was what they did to like narrow it down. No, not that one. This one. So just as a heads up for that. All right, where was I? Yes. Let's close it out. 23 to 25. During that long period, talking about a time span, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. Again, this isn't a great translation in the NIV. What's better is actually the NLT. I believe it's the NLT that says, and God took note. Remember that when the Bible says God remembered, it's not to say he legitimately forgot. Okay, the all-knowing, all-powerful God that has created everything, that knows you, that knew you thousands of years before you were born, did not forget. That's not what it's saying. But it's the best way that we can explain the timing, the necessity of proper timing. All things happen at the right time. So this is just a way of saying, and then he remembered. He then took action because this is now the right time for the next series of events to happen. So again, God did not legitimately forget about his own people. He did not just wake up and to Michael the archangel and be like, we got reports of some weird stuff going down on earth. Nothing like that happened. All right. So that's what I got for y'all tonight, my brothers and sisters. Hope y'all were able to get a lot out of this. Please hold on to those additional notes that I made today about the names, about time periods, and taking note of the subtleties. A long time has passed. This generation had died. Things like that to give us an understanding of time passing by. And also the cultural aspects that we covered. This is all going to come in handy as we progress throughout the Old Testament, not just the book of Exodus. But of course, if y'all have any questions about what we covered today or just any questions in general, please leave it down in the comments section. Shoot me a DM, or in the link in the description below is the email address for the ministry. I love y'all. God bless. Stay safe. Keep the shine side up. And I'll see y'all next time.